Midfield is one of the biggest problems West Ham have to solve in the summer transfer window. We have lacked someone who's been able to cover ground, especially at speed, over the last season, and it's been incredibly obvious. Legs. That's all I see in YouTube comment section. Legs, legs, legs. That's what we need. Alongside potentially someone who can link to the front line, because, at times it's felt a little bit like Paquetá kind of has to almost pass to himself, and he can only be in one place at one time. So, Jack, what's the process been here? What are we looking for when we talk about who West Ham need to bring in this window?
It went on for a long time. I can start with that. This has been a really exhaustive process to try and come up with lots and lots and lots of names that can fix various issues, because if we're being really honest about problems in the West Ham midfield over the course of the last season and a bit longer really, there have been quite a lot of problems. So to try and drill down into exactly what those things are and how to separate them out has been challenging. But the clearest bit of the methodology was to kind of separate Premier League midfielders into buckets. West Ham's midfielders tended to all fall into the same bucket at the end of that process. And if you want to hear exactly what that was, we're going to be going into that in more depth on the Patreon extended version of this show, where you can hear exactly how we filtered the midfielders, exactly where we found the limitations were in the West Ham midfield, and then exactly how we started to expand this list of players, which, began honestly in the hundreds and then got whittled down through footage review and data review into these players that we're going to talk about here. But main thing, like you say, legs, progressive ability, that's what we're looking for in this video. We've got more coming to fix other problems.
So let's skip to the end of that process then. Let's see what those numbers are. Who are these people that West Ham should be targeting? Jack, give me your number 3 choice for midfielders to join West Ham this summer.
At number 3, we're going with, or definitely starting on my side with one of the players that's a little bit older on the list. So first of all, everyone on the list had to be under the age of 26, because we desperately need to change the age profile of our midfield unit. We've got some really promising young players coming through at West Ham, but there's quite a big gap between them and some of the older players at West Ham that have been playing in the midfield for a long time. So we went for that sort of under 26 range, and here I've gone for someone who's more towards that top end, more towards their prime, and trying to bridge that gap between the younger players and the older players. And it's Hicham Boudaoui of Nice, 25 years old, Algerian international, 19 caps for Algeria, and a 2027 contract, as opposed to some of the other players on the list who maybe have longer contracts, more impressive young players. Therefore, hopefully one of the cheaper options that I've picked out to throw into the video. He's been around for a long time in Ligue 1. I've watched a lot of Nice over the last few years. I tend to watch Ligue 1 the most of outside of the Premier League. And he actually broke into the team to play sort of his most minutes since he arrived there last season. Played a much bigger role, scored, I think it was 2 goals, 4 assists come the end of the season. And kind of surprised it wasn't more, because when you watch him, he makes so many box crashing runs. So if we're thinking about what Thomas Souček specifically does at West Ham, breaking forward into the final third, Boudaoui definitely kind of replicates those things, makes lots of incisive runs, tries to always break into the box. There are lots of situations where that sometimes can be a little bit frustrating, because he'll move the ball sideways. It's like a useful pass out to a fullback. And then maybe where he might be better placed staying in the midfield, he tends to just turn and go, Valhalla, I'm going to the box. But it's really nice that he's got the legs to do that. And obviously that's exactly what we're trying to address. So he is unbelievable for energy. He's all over the pitch at all times. His ability to dribble is really strong. So in terms of those carries that we're looking for, that's a real standout ability of his. He actually is only 68th percentile in Ligue 1 for progressive carries. But when you think about how he moves the ball in tight areas, he has a really nice ability to sort of break through pressure. So whilst he might not carry over great distance, over that sort of 2-3 yard range to just break a line, move the ball onto someone else, and then actually use his running power to help you out in the final third. That's more what he brings to the team. But yeah, I think the standout thing with him is just the ability to cover the entire pitch in midfield. So massive numbers of recoveries, massive numbers of tackles. He tends to be relatively good in those tackles. Only major concern would be as he tires, because he's always running, the accuracy of his actions tends to kind of come down a little bit and be a little bit more wasteful.
And he sounds like we're covering at least 2 of the 3 of legs there, at least there, which is nice. It's kind of again vital here. Darcy, what about your number 3 pick?
Yeah, so my number 3 is also towards well, he's 26. He's at the older end of kind of the player pool that we're picking from, and it's Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, who's currently at Chelsea. Is definitely a player that I think has probably not become disrespected, but lesser appreciated because of the situation he's found himself in at Chelsea. He's someone that I think has a really high technical level, and really addresses the area of what Jack was talking about at the start of the video in terms of linking the back line to the front line. He's very good in terms of like going and receiving off of the back line and taking his first touch on the back foot. He's always on the half turn, and he's a good information gatherer as well, which I think is really important in the middle of the pitch. He's scanning frequently, and therefore he's not just turning into or taking his first touch straight into pressure. Also very much a pass appreciator, weights a lot of his passes and is extremely capable as like a two-way progressor. So he can pass forward, but he can also carry forward in tight spaces as well. Maybe not the exact type of physical profile that you would associate with an 8, but he is very good in the tackle. So he won 60% of his ground duels in his championship season before he moved to Chelsea in the Premier League. The only slight issue with that is maybe his volume isn't in the same place as you'd want from someone playing in central midfield. But the trade-off you get with that is there's a body of work that shows that he can be a very high volume contributor in the final third as a creator. So in the championship in 23-24, he was in the top 2% of midfielders for expected assists. So slight trade-off with his profile, but really addresses some of the weaknesses that I think exist in the midfield on the ball, and paired with the right player, I think could be really, really effective as more of an advanced state.
Still recovering from the fact you just said he was 26. Where has time gone? When did that happen? What the heck's gone on with it? I know this isn't part of what we're talking about in the video and we need for... What has happened there? That seems to have happened. Crazy
Time flies
stuff
at Chelsea.
Well, apparently so. Jack, who's your second choice pick?
If I leaned in the direction of legs with my first pick, I am leaning in the direction of progressive ability with my second pick, and it is Thomas Handel, 24 years old, Vitória Guimarães in the Primeira Liga, 2029 contract. He does have a 50 mil release clause, euros, but obviously we had an 85 million release clause for Kudus. That was negotiated down to 55. We were happy to sell him for that. I don't think they're necessarily going to get that full 50. So hopefully would be available for a little bit less and worth looking, because to be honest, we looked at quite a lot of players in Portugal. We looked at players at the big sides in Portugal, Benfica, Sporting and Porto, and actually Handel was the player that we ended up landing on, despite some really big names that are doing some really great work at the big sides, as being a little bit more what we need in this specific position with the number 8. He started consistently for 2 seasons now, hasn't really been involved too much in the setup around Portugal. Obviously, that's really difficult to break into. And actually, I think he's Portuguese-Austrian. I wonder if he might switch over to Austria at some point, because breaking in beyond all the midfielders available for Portugal is tough. I mean, when you've got Vitinha and João Neves, best of luck. But yeah, his big thing, like I said, is progression. So really high pass volume, really technically skilled. So really good ability to always move the ball forward when he receives really nicely, very accurate. So if you're thinking kind of what we get a little bit from Ward-Prowse, in that he completes all of his passes, tends not to lose the ball, helps us move the ball around, maybe doesn't progress quite as much or break lines quite as much. You know, the number of yards he will have progressed across a game will be quite nice. But in terms of, passes that tend to break you right into the final third, not so much from Ward-Prowse. Thomas Handel would give us a little bit more of that, the ability to break us straight into the final third or play a ball round the corner that gets us into a more promising position. Pops out really highly in Portugal for progressive passes. So in that top 15 or 16% there. Really high for overall pass completion as well, in the top 7% in Portugal for that, despite all that progression, which is always a really nice blend to get, someone that moves the ball forward and takes those risks, but tends not to lose it. And also I really like with him that the carries are really high as well. So that ability to progress both ways is really good. So he's in the 69th percentile for progressive carries. Interceptions, really high. Dual dominance, so in the tackles, really, really good as well. Not so many tackles across the game, but definitely someone that can nip ahead of a ball that's being played through, win it, and then break you forward with the next pass. So very technically skilled, really good at linking play, really good at helping his team get towards the final third, and perhaps a lesser known option, and therefore maybe a little bit cheaper than some of the really, really premium options that can do this, because to be honest, finding someone that can progress as well as he does and as cleanly as he does for not too much money is really, really tough.
Yeah, I like that shout. It's one of the first ones where I don't really know anything about him. I've seen his name like once or twice, mainly because it's an easy pun to make. Do you know what I mean? Oh, he can get a handle on the midfield. So I've seen it around, but I've literally don't think I've ever watched him play. So that's an interesting one. I like that. I like that shout. Darcy, can you match it? Second choice pick.
Yeah, but maybe not in terms of ability to make puns out of his name. But if you are a Scottish Premier League fan, I'm sure you'll be aware of Arnie Engels, who plays at Celtic. If you're not, he's 21 years old. Really technically and physically impressive central midfielder. And in all the minutes that I've seen, he clearly looks like one of the best players on the pitch, whether he's playing in the SPL or he's playing in Europe, or playing in the Champions League like they were last year. Bags of energy to get around midfield, whether that's to recover when Celtic don't have the ball, and he can get back and make some level of defensive intervention, or whether that's because he's just been involved in like a quick combinative set of passes on the right hand side, and then he's off to like break beyond the ball and get high or get into the box. In the data, he looks like a really, really good ball carrier, but actually I think from watching him, what I'm most impressed by is the set of attributes that are built around his ability to pass. So technically, really incisive when he needs to be. He can find a line breaker. He can combine with players really quickly as well. But I think the most important thing for me is his decision making. So he seems to scan and collect information really well, and therefore makes informed decisions, and therefore will very rarely play passes that put a teammate in danger or in a situation where they're going to lose the ball. And that's whether he's dropping deep to receive, he's playing in between the lines, or even breaking into the box. I think his choices have always been consistently really good when I've seen him play. And again, that's not just in the SPL, that's in Europe. I've seen him against Bayern, I've seen him against Villa. And that kind of stuff is really consistent across his game. So really powerful physically, technically really of a high level, and really for me, although his carrying is very good, most impressed by his ability to be an incisive passer.
Would you say he's good at finding the angles?
I knew I could rely on you to find one.
There's something there. There's something there. I'm ill, so maybe in the comments, if you've got a better one, maybe workshop that slightly better. While you're down there, click on patreon.com/analyticsunited. Completely free to join for the first 7 days, and we have an extended version of this show going through all of the people we've spoken about here in more detail, as well as the full sort of top 10 list that we narrow them down from, give some shout out to honourable mentions, give you a much broader range of knowledge about all of the centre-mids, the most exciting centre-mids from across European and world football. At the moment, patreon.com/analyticsunited. Here's a little behind the scenes thing. We were doing one of these on left backs. West Ham beat us to the punch on that. So we just uploaded the full thing, both this version and the extended version, over on our Patreon. So there's loads of stuff happening over there. Go and check it out. First 7 days is free. Jack, talk to me. Your number one pick for centre midfielders West Ham should try and sign this summer.
Yeah, this was easy, to be honest. Pretty much since he's broken into the team in the second half of last season at Rennes in Ligue 1. Of course, it's me going for another Ligue 1 pick. He's looked so impressive. Bit of a late developer, because you might have thought that we'd seen him beforehand. He's 21 years old now. It is Jowie Cisse. Off the back of a bonkers under 21 Euros where he scored 3 goals from midfield. Yeah, what a player. Big, strong, tall guy, able to completely physically dominate despite his age, capable playing as an 8, very capable playing as a 6. We've seen him play in the exact system that that we used for a lot of the second half of last season under Potter, that sort of 3-5-2 with a deeper midfielder and two ahead. We've seen him play as the deepest one. We've seen him play as the most advanced one. We've seen him play in between the two. He's done all of those roles and acquitted himself very well in each of those roles. Ability to cover ground is impressive. Ability to progress is also impressive. So if I leaned one way with the first one, leaned the other way with the second one, this is a player I think that combines both really nicely. Progressive passes kind of off the chain at 6.74, does that with an 87.5% pass accuracy across all of his passes, is playing over 50 passes a game. This is a guy that wants to get on the ball, will progress the ball, will keep the ball while he's doing it, can carry at a really high rate, completing a good number of take-ons, the most of any of my three players in each game, which really shows for me that when he is pressed, he's always able to find a way out of that pressure, or will always try to find a way out of that pressure. Also in the 99th percentile, the top player in Ligue 1 for blocks, which is a really nice thing. There's another player that's making the top 10 that I'm going to speak about more, where I really like, just because they're so tall, when they get caught on the edge of the box and someone wants to take a shot from range, they can just kind of throw a leg out and stop a shot from getting through. That's a really useful thing to have in your midfield. We see the usefulness of just having a big physical presence in Tomáš Souček. When you get close to your own box, he can do a lot to help you out defending in those situations. Loads of recoveries. He's in the top 14% in Ligue 1 for percentage of dribblers tackled, so success when he's tackling. Top 17% for recoveries. Loads of interceptions. Like, anything and everything you want in this particular role from a midfielder, João Cisse has. The only thing I would say is it's still super early, right? Like, half a season's worth of minutes in Ligue 1 and a under-21 tournament is all we have to go off. But if he's able to maintain this and develop on this, we're looking at one of the most impressive under-21 midfielders in Europe right now, despite this weirdly late burst onto the scene from him. Player I love, player I'm really excited about, player I would absolutely love to have at West Ham.
And the sort of player where if you don't take the opportunity to try and sign him now, you might never get that opportunity again. Because if it's 6 months at data, he's done really well for 6 months, that's one thing. But once it's a year, 18 months, then it becomes a much more different conversation. Bigger clubs come in who are Champions League regulars, all that kind of stuff. And so a lot of the time with these kind of players, a bit like we have with Malik Diouf to an extent, if you don't get that opportunity now, then you're not going to, if you don't take that opportunity now, you're not going to be able to take it later. And so that's an important thing to consider when you're looking at players who are pretty new in that when you're a club like West Ham. But Darcy, what about you? Who's your number one choice?
Yeah, if I think there's anyone that can go sort of toe-to-toe with João Cisse in the under-21 central midfield category, it's Lamine Camara, who's currently at Monaco, also 21. Senegalese player, contract until 2029. And the way I'd sum up Camara, if you've not heard of him or not seen us speak about him, because this won't be the first time that we've discussed him, just because he's so good. He's someone that's got a very good floor level, but a massive ceiling, capable of playing deep or as more of an advanced state, and attributes like being really energetic and buzzy and covering ground quickly means that even on days where maybe there is some level of technical inconsistency, which is quite rare to be honest, or he makes a small mistake or two, he still has lots and lots to offer, which I think is a real positive compared to the group of midfielders that we have at West Ham, where when things go wrong, they can go really, really wrong. Without the ball, contests a load of duels, wins a really good proportion of those duels, deals with contacts really well. And one thing I'm a really big fan of is following like a defensive confrontation, he secures the ball quickly and safely and finds a pass that alleviates pressure and essentially resets the game. And some people might prefer a little bit more of a direct midfielder in those cases, someone that will play forward. But I quite like the sort of temperament where he'll slow things down a little bit and just find a safe pass. To me anyway, that indicates like game intelligence, and that's something I definitely think he has with and without the ball. And that allows, without the ball, he can play more of like a screening heavy role where he sort of sits in front of the Monaco defence in a pivot, and he can shuffle across laterally to cut out passes. But he's also really good at getting in people's faces and like pressing intensely, chasing down the ball. With the ball, primarily like a pass-driven player. And if there was maybe one criticism that I could put on Camara, it would be that maybe he doesn't seem as comfortable or really confident carrying the ball, even though I think he would be a very good carrier if he did it more. but his passing and his range of passing is really, really impressive. He strikes the ball really well. He's on a lot of the set pieces for Monaco. And it allows him to be actually creative. And really that's where you get your really high ceiling level, where he's able to spot a pass whilst he's sitting sort of deep in midfield. A winger makes an out-to-in run. He's the kind of player that will spot that pass and deliver it right on their toe in the box so that they can go and finish a chance. So a good combination of buzziness, good dueling, but then really top shelf level passer. And I think it's not just something that we don't have at West Ham. It's something that actually quite a lot of clubs are looking for and don't have. And the window to go and get someone like Lamine Camara, in the same way with Joey Cisse, I think is ever closing. And I think it's maybe a little bit more urgent with Camara because he's been doing this for a little while now. But yeah, he is my number one pick.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, the big thing for me on the top two and why they stand out from the others is also just the ability to add a little something extra. So Kamara with the set pieces, Joey Cisse with the ability to just whip shots in from outside the box. Kamara actually can do that as well. He's got 6 goals in 23 apps for Senegal. I think when you're thinking about what we have with Souček and Ward-Prowse and looking to try and prepare for those guys coming out of the team or getting older and playing less often, and replacing them with young players, you've got players that add goals and assists in their game as well as doing all the important functions when you're deeper in the pitch.
And if you want to hear more about all of those players plus the extra ones, head on over to patreon.com/Analytics United. First 7 days is free, complete extended edition over there right now. The second when you've seen this, it's posted at the exact same time, so it is there waiting for you to absorb all of the good information that Jack and Darcy provide. Good work yet again. Excellent choices all round. Very exciting
rises
stuff.
Again.
Yes. And if you are interested in the other ones, I'll be shocked if there weren't even more league and suggestions over there. Apart from that, subscribe if you enjoyed, like the video, and we'll see you next time. Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Bye.